Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Tuesday, August 19th, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The high in Riverside today will reach 90.4 degrees Fahrenheit, with a comfortable low of 68.5. A warm day across the region, making it a good reminder to stay hydrated and find some shade if you're out and about. On today's program, we'll be looking into the latest developments in the Middle East, specifically why Israel rejected a Gaza ceasefire agreement that Hamas had accepted. Then, we turn our attention to domestic policy as we discuss the surprising move by California to boost its oil production. All these stories and more coming up right after the break, here on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We begin this morning with a significant development in the Middle East, offering a potential crack in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas. Yesterday, August 18, 2025, Hamas officially accepted a new ceasefire proposal for the Gaza Strip, brokered by Arab mediators. For more on this, we turn to our seasoned reporter, Ethan. Ethan, can you walk us through what happened and what makes this proposal different?
Grace, this is indeed a pivotal moment. According to reporting, Hamas accepted a ceasefire proposal that, strikingly, was without requesting any amendments. This suggests, as some analysts put it, immense pressure on the group. The proposal itself, brokered by Egypt and Qatar, is described as nearly identical or 98% similar to an earlier United States-backed plan that Israel had reportedly accepted previously. This earlier plan was actually accepted by Hamas back on May 5, 2024.
That's quite a detail. And for our viewers who may be new to following this complex situation, can you remind us how this conflict began and the scale of the human toll?
Absolutely, Grace. The conflict's origins trace back to October 7, 2023, when Hamas-led militants initiated a devastating attack. That day saw the abduction of 251 people and the killing of approximately 200 individuals, predominantly civilians. Since then, the Gaza Health Ministry, which is part of the Hamas-run government, has reported a tragic milestone. The Palestinian death toll from 22 months of war has surpassed 62,000, with 156, 230 wounded. Heartbreakingly, about half of these fatalities are women and children. On the Israeli side, approximately 50 hostages are still believed to remain in Gaza, with around 20 of them thought to be alive, fueling continued mass protests in Israel demanding their return.
Those numbers are truly staggering. Turning back to the ceasefire proposal, can you elaborate on its stages and what each entails? It sounds quite comprehensive.
It is, Grace, very much a multi-stage roadmap. The overall aims are ambitious: the release of all Israeli captives, whether civilian or military, alive or deceased, in exchange for an agreed number of Palestinian prisoners. Beyond that, it aims for a return to sustainable calm, leading to a permanent ceasefire, the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, and crucially the reconstruction of Gaza with the lifting of the siege.
That sounds like a long-term vision. What about the immediate steps?
The immediate steps are laid out in Stage 1, which is now a 60-day truce, originally proposed as 42 days. During this phase, mutual military operations would cease, and Israeli forces would withdraw eastward from densely populated areas. A critical difference from earlier proposals is that negotiations for a permanent ceasefire would commence on the very first day of this 60-day truce, not after it concludes. Military and reconnaissance air operations over Gaza would halt for 10 to 12 hours daily during prisoner exchanges. Hamas would release approximately half of the remaining living Israeli captives, including women, children under 19, those over 50, and the sick. If the number of living individuals doesn't meet the quota, bodies would be included. In return, Israel would release Palestinian prisoners, 30 for every living civilian Israeli captive, and 50 for every living Israeli female soldier, including 30 serving life sentences. For every Israeli captive's remains returned, 10 Palestinian bodies would be released. unarmed, displaced persons would be allowed to return, and freedom of movement would be restored for all Gaza residents. Humanitarian aid would surge, with at least 60,000 temporary homes and 200,000 tents allowed into Gaza, and restrictions on goods and travelers, including the wounded via the Rafah crossing, would be lifted.
And what follows Stage 1?
Stage 2 would see the declaration of sustainable calm, meaning a permanent end to military operations and a complete withdrawal of Israeli forces. Hamas would then release the remaining living Israeli captives, male civilians and soldiers, in exchange for an agreed number of Palestinian prisoners. Finally, Stage 3 involves the release of the remains of deceased Israeli hostages, followed by comprehensive reconstruction of homes, civilian facilities, and infrastructure destroyed during the war, supervised by international bodies including Egypt, Qatar, and the United Nations.
It seems like a thorough plan, yet Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has indicated his country's position remains unchanged, vowing to continue the war. This seems contradictory, especially if it's nearly identical to a plan Israel reportedly accepted. What's behind this?
You've hit on the crux of the matter, Grace. An unnamed Israeli official confirmed Israel's position has not changed, and Israel has not yet joined the latest talks. Netanyahu himself asserted that Hamas's acceptance indicated the group was under massive pressure. The apparent contradiction, as ABC News has uncovered, stems from evolving military, political, and diplomatic conditions. Militarily, Israel has intensified operations, announcing plans to reoccupy Gaza City. Defense Minister Israel Katz stated Hamas's acceptance stemmed from its fear that Israel seriously intends to conquer Gaza City, suggesting a belief that military pressure is working. Politically, Netanyahu faces immense pressure from far-right coalition partners who threaten to collapse his government if a ceasefire deal is approved that they deem too lenient. Diplomatically, while the proposals are nearly identical, fundamental disagreements persist, particularly over the duration and scope of the ceasefire and post-conflict arrangements. Israel has also reportedly introduced new demands, such as the occupation of the Philadelphia Corridor, a narrow strip of land along the Gaza-Egypt border.
So despite this glimmer of hope from Hamas's acceptance, the path forward is still very much a rocky one. Beyond the political stalemate, how is the humanitarian situation on the ground in Gaza?
Grace, it remains catastrophic. Experts are warning the strip is sliding into famine. According to reporting from the Los Angeles Times, Gaza's health ministry reported that 965 people have been killed since May while seeking humanitarian aid. Since tracking began, or since the war started, at least 263 people, including 112 children and 151 adults, have died from malnutrition-related causes. Just yesterday, on August 18, 2025, 5 new deaths, including 2 children, were reported. Aid distribution is severely hampered. The Rafah crossing, a key entry point for aid, has not functioned since Israel seized its Palestinian side in May 2024. Community kitchens in Gaza are producing significantly fewer meals daily, 380,000 last week, compared to over 1 million in April. Amnesty International has even accused Israel of a deliberate campaign of starvation, a charge Israel denies, blaming the UN for slow aid delivery. UN agencies, in turn, attribute delivery issues to Israeli restrictions and a breakdown of law and order.
That paints a grim picture. What about the international reaction to Hamas's acceptance? Where does the ball lie now, as they say?
Indeed, Grace, many international mediators are emphasizing that the quote, is now in Israel's court. Qatar's foreign ministry spokesperson, Majed Al-Ansari, confirmed Hamas's positive response yesterday, August 19, 2025, stressing the, quote, critical humanitarian moment and the dire consequences of failing to reach an agreement. Mediators are reportedly expecting to announce an agreement and set a date for the resumption of talks, with guarantees offered to ensure implementation and to pursue a permanent solution. Egypt, for its part, is advocating for a community support committee under the supervision of the Palestinian Authority to manage Gaza post-war, and has expressed opposition to the deployment of international or Arab forces without specific conditions. Interestingly, United States President Donald Trump cast doubt on the negotiations, posting that the return of hostages would only happen when Hamas is confronted and destroyed, quote, and end quote. While U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff helped formulate the current proposal, there has been no specific new diplomatic initiative announced by the U.S. following Israel's refusal to join talks. A former Egyptian assistant foreign minister suggested the U.S. administration might be less interested in partial deals and more aligned with the perceived necessity of defeating Hamas, especially after Israel's announced plans for an offensive against Gaza City. So while Hamas has made its move, it looks like a real Mideast maze still lies ahead.
Ethan, thank you for breaking down this incredibly complex and heart-wrenching situation. Your insights are invaluable.
My pleasure, Grace.
We'll be keeping a close eye on this developing story. Coming up next, we have a report on. Welcome back. We're turning now to a fascinating and somewhat unexpected development out of California, where Governor Gavin Newsom appears to be making a significant shift in his long-standing stance on the oil industry. For more on what some are calling a climate reversal, we go to our reporter, Chloe. Chloe, what exactly is going on here?
Grace, it's quite the turnaround. According to reporting from Cal Matters by climate reporter Alejandra Lazo, Governor Newsom has notably softened his position on the oil industry. This is a dramatic change from his previous aggressive criticisms, where he often accused big oil of, quote, screwing, quote, consumers, and famously characterized the climate crisis as a, quote, fossil fuel crisis, quote, as covered by layist.com and laytimes.com. His administration had been pushing for strict regulations, including laws restricting oil operations near schools and homes, pushing for penalties on excessive oil company profits, and setting ambitious goals to phase out fracking by 2024 and all oil extraction by 2045, according to PoliticoPro.com.
So, from an outspoken critic to a warming stance. What's behind this pivot?
The primary catalyst, Grace, appears to be the impending closures of two major oil refineries. The Phillips 66 refinery in Los Angeles, also known as Wilmington, and the Valero refinery in Benicia in the Bay Area, as reported by layist.com, laytimes.com, and heartenergy.com. These facilities collectively process about 17% to 20% of California's total gasoline refining capacity. We're talking about a reduction of roughly 284,000 barrels per day from the state's 1.68 million barrels per day capacity as of early 2024, according to Lodi411.com, ehn.org, and youtube.com.
That's a significant chunk of capacity. When are these closures set to take place?
The Phillips 66 refinery is slated to cease conventional crude processing by October 2025, which is just 42 days from today, Grace. And Valero intends to restructure its operations by the end of April 2026, according to layist.com and heartenergy.com. These closures have led to dire forecasts, with some experts predicting gasoline prices in California could skyrocket past $8 per gallon, or even $10 per gallon by the end of 2026. For Governor Newsom, who has national political ambitions and whose party emphasizes affordability, this truly is, as layist.com and PoliticoPro.com put it, a, quote, nightmare scenario, quote. He's publicly acknowledged this pragmatic shift, stating, quote, "We are all the beneficiaries of oil and gas." No one's naive about that quote, and emphasizing the need for, quote, a just transition, a pragmatism, quote, according to layist.com.
That's quite the pickle for the governor. So, with these closures on the horizon and the potential for soaring gas prices, what's his administration's proposed solution? Are they looking to strike oil closer to home?
Indeed, Grace. They're looking to literally pump up production in Kern County. Newsom and Democratic legislative leaders are actively negotiating a legislative package to significantly streamline and boost oil production there. Kern County is key because it accounts for approximately 75% to 76% of all crude oil produced in California, as detailed by KernCitizensForEnergy.com and CaliforniaPolicyCenter.org. The core of this is a draft bill circulating since July that includes several provisions aimed at easing the path for new drilling, according to Layist.com and Heartenergy.com.
And what are the specifics of this legislative effort?
The most controversial aspect, Grace, is a 10-year shield for Kern County's oil and gas permitting system from lawsuits filed under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA. For those unfamiliar, CEQA is a foundational environmental law that requires state and local agencies to identify and mitigate significant environmental impacts. This proposed shield would effectively allow Kern County to issue drilling permits without new CEQA litigation until January 2036, according to KernCitizensForEnergy.com, Layist.com, and legal-planet.org. The bill aims to codify Kern County's existing oil and gas ordinance as CEQA compliant, recognizing existing mitigation measures as sufficient, notes QCintel.com. It would also streamline permitting, allowing new well permits to bypass individual review by CalGEM, the California Geologic Energy Management Division, if specific conditions are met, according to Layist.com. And unlike operators in other parts of the state who might face a, quote, plug two to drill one, quote, requirement, meaning they plug 2 old wells for every new one, Kern County producers would reportedly be exempt from this rule.
That sounds like a significant relaxation of environmental oversight. How are environmental groups reacting to this potential policy shift?
Grace, they are far from pleased. This proposal has faced immediate and significant pushback from over 120 environmental and environmental justice organizations. They've signed letters condemning Newsom's push, characterizing it as an, quote, outrageous blank check for unlimited oil drilling, quote, and a move that would, quote, eviscerate, quote, California's foundational environmental review law, as reported by Layist.com and wildcalifornia.org. They argue the CEQA shield would, quote, wipe out scrutiny of the industry, quote, and disproportionately harm vulnerable communities already affected by oil and gas operations, according to Layist.com.
So intense lobbying efforts on both sides, I imagine.
Absolutely. The oil and gas industry is heavily engaged, spending over $9.2 million in the second quarter of 2025 alone, with Chevron and the Western States Petroleum Association being major contributors, according to BloombergTax.com and PoliticoPro.com. They're promoting an, quote, energy affordability campaign, quote. Conversely, environmental groups are actively countering, with the California Environmental Voters Education Fund launching a, quote, 7-figure, quote, ad buy just this month, according to PoliticoPro.com. Groups like the Center for Biological Diversity and the Sierra Club are vocal in their opposition.
Chloe, is this truly a complete climate reversal, or is the administration framing it as a pragmatic, temporary measure to ensure energy reliability?
It's being framed both ways, Grace. Environmental justice groups predominantly view it as a, quote, climate reversal, quote, and an, quote, industry giveaway, quote, arguing it undermines long-term climate goals, as reported by Layist.com and EHN.org. However, the administration frames it as a necessary, albeit difficult, adaptation to current economic and infrastructure realities. They point to significant delays in the state's renewable energy projects, including new federal hurdles like stricter deadlines for tax credits by the end of 2027 and restrictions on components from, quote, foreign entities of concern, quote, impacting new solar and wind projects, according to sfchronicle.com and canarymedia.com. There's also a 2022 California law intended to streamline clean energy project approvals that has proven ineffective, with projects like the Fountain Wind Farms stalled for over 650 days due to local opposition and legal challenges, PoliticoPro.com reports. So, while it appears to contradict Newsom's previous climate leadership, proponents argue it's a stopgap to bridge the energy supply gap until the clean energy transition can accelerate effectively, ensuring California doesn't become overly reliant on even more expensive imported refined fuels, as covered by PoliticoPro.com and FreeBeacon.com. The legislative session is nearing its mid-September conclusion, so we'll be watching to see how this all shakes out.
It's certainly a complex issue, Chloe. Thank you for drilling down into the details for us this morning.
My pleasure, Grace.
Our thanks to Chloe for that comprehensive report. This story was informed by reporting from CalMatters, Layist.com, Laytimes.com, PoliticoPro.com, Heartnergy.com, Lodi411.com, EHN.org, YouTube.com, FreeBeacon.com, KernCitizensForEnergy.com, CaliforniaPolicyCenter.org, Legal-Planet.org, QCintel.com, LocalNewsMatters.org, CaliforniaEnergyForAll.com, BloombergTax.com, Convenience.org, WildCalifornia.org, SFChronicle.com, Canary Media. Here are some other headlines. In Washington, President Donald Trump is trumping up a new peace plan for Ukraine, one that seems to prioritize a long-term deal over an immediate ceasefire. Following high-stakes meetings with both Vladimir Putin in Alaska and Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House, the proposal would see Russia gain full control of the Donbas region in exchange for freezing the current front lines. Moscow is reportedly jubilant, as this aligns with its long-held strategic goals, but Kyiv remains firm, stating that surrendering Ukrainian land is not an option. European leaders are expressing cautious optimism mixed with concern, worried Ukraine is being pressured into major concessions. As part of the potential deal, the U.S. would coordinate NATO-like security guarantees for Ukraine, though the exact nature of American involvement remains undefined. Meanwhile, Hurricane Erin is making a big splash off the East Coast, churning up life-threatening waves and forcing evacuations in North Carolina's Outer Banks. While the Category 4 storm isn't expected to make landfall, its massive size is generating swells of up to 15 feet. The primary concern is that these waves could swamp Highway 12, the main artery to the mainland, effectively isolating the islands. Mandatory evacuation orders are in place for tourists on Hatteras and Ocracoke Islands, affecting an estimated 90,000 people, though some were reportedly slow to leave Monday's sunny weather, unaware of the powerful rip currents already brewing. In the world of tech, Japanese conglomerate SoftBank is chipping in with a $2 billion strategic investment in U.S. chipmaker Intel. The move is a vote of confidence in Intel's pivot toward the artificial intelligence market, as the company has faced stiff competition and recently announced layoffs. SoftBank's CEO called Intel a, quote, trusted leader in innovation. The investment also comes as the Trump administration is reportedly considering taking its own stake in the company. Intel is certainly hoping this cash infusion will compute, as its stock rose more than 5% on the news. And in public health, there's a shot of controversy, as the American Academy of Pediatrics is breaking ranks with the CDC on COVID-19 vaccine recommendations for children for the first time in 3 decades. Amid what's being called confusing government guidance under the new administration, the AAP is now strongly recommending the shots for all children aged 6 months to 2 years, citing high risk. This directly contrasts with guidance from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which states healthy children may get the shots but no longer recommends they should. The AAP says while the differing advice may cause confusion, their focus is on making the right choices to protect children. Finally, a story out of Maine, where a reserve police officer has agreed to voluntarily leave the country after being arrested by ICE. John Luke Evans, a Jamaican national, was arrested for overstaying his visa and attempting to unlawfully purchase a firearm. The arrest has sparked a bureaucratic firefight, with the Old Orchard Beach police chief stating the department used the federal E-Verify system and was told Evans was eligible to work. Homeland Security, however, called that a reckless reliance on the program. After his arrest, a judge granted Evans a voluntary departure, meaning his time on the force and in the country has expired. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Sonnet 4.0, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.